Have you noticed how plans evaporate the moment desire lights up? How standards soften? How the day you swore to own becomes the day you spend orbiting a body? You call it love, fate, chemistry. Then the ledger appears. Messages checked in loops, training skipped, money spent to impress, boundaries bent to avoid losing access. Arthur Schopenhauer would not flatter this. He would say the will to life has taken the wheel, disguising reproduction as romance and turning a man into a courier for the species. Love in this lens is a mask, lust the engine beneath it, and your higher aim's the fuel. The point is not to hate women or to fear attraction. The point is to see the mechanism so you stop mistaking compulsion for devotion. Schopenhauer begins beneath psychology. Before motives and moods, there is will, a blind striving that wants only to continue. In the human creature, the will has a clever instrument, the sexual impulse. To accomplish its aim, it paints a stage set called love. You see a face, a walk, a laugh, and feel inevitability. He would tell you it is not inevitability. It is the species waiving a contract. The traits that captivate you, youth, vitality, symmetry, scent, even temperament, are not random. They are signals of reproductive promise your body reads before your mind writes poetry. The trick deepens. The will personalizes itself to capture your obedience. It makes you believe this one woman holds the answer to your particular hunger. In truth, it cares nothing for your biography. It cares for pairings that will produce and survive. That is why the fantasy defies the facts. You overrule red flags because the aim is not your harmony. It is future mouths. You neglect projects because the aim is not your destiny. It is the cradle. The will is patient and can afford your remorse. It only needs you to yield now. Schopenhauer offends modern romance by pointing to the scoreboard no one wants to read. Before the union, you ache and serve. During the pursuit, you justify sacrifices you would never make for a friend. After possession, you feel the intensity drop, sometimes into indifference, sometimes into irritability. The will has spent your surplus. The mask of destiny begins to slip. He is not blaming the woman. He is naming the force. Why does this matter? Because a man who cannot name the ruse remains a boy in breathless pursuit of an idol. He calls slavery devotion and derails his life while praising his own sensitivity. Once you accept that the impulse is a metaphysical trick, you can look it in the eye without despising it. You can feel the pull and still ask, does this bond serve my whole life, or merely the will's immediate command? A man who cannot ask will kneel. A man who can ask gains the first freedom, distance between surge and consent. Schopenhauer does not promise you a life without desire. He offers you a life where desire is demoted to instrument. The story becomes lucid. The species wants what it wants. You decide whether obedience advances or arrests your becoming. Schopenhauer divides the world into will and representation. Representation is how your mind paints the world, so it can be apprehended. Under lust, the painting becomes a fresco. You do not meet a person, you meet your representation of her. Features are exaggerated, flaws minimized, compatibility assumed. The canvas glows because the will supplies the light. He would have you notice how the glow recedes as soon as possession is achieved. The same mouth that once felt oracular now seems simply a mouth. The same habits that were endearing become annoying. The representation shrinks back to proportions reality can support. This shrinkage is not moral failure. It is physics. The impulse inflates value in advance to secure your compliance. It hijacks imagination to construct an image that can command sacrifice. That is why you promise more than you can sustain and feel noble doing it. That is why you praise traits that will later grate against your rhythm. The picture was a baited hook. You supplied most of the bait. Modern discourse calls this idealization and devaluation. Schopenhauer's language is colder. The will spun a veil. The intellect helped by painting it prettier. He points you to pattern over moment. Moment says, this is the one. Pattern says, I say that every time I see this kind of face. Moment says, our souls match. Pattern says, our biologies rhyme, and I have a history of ignoring friction when this rhyme is sung. This is not cynicism. It is the move from theatre to map. The practical test is consistency under cost. Representations are cheap. Repetition is expensive. If she remains luminous after boundaries hold, after you keep your morning intact, after you refuse to turn purpose into tribute, you are perhaps meeting a person, not only your projection. If glow depends on you kneeling to it, you are meeting your own image boomeranged back as demand. Schopenhauer is often accused of bleakness. The clarity is not meant to shrivel your heart. It is meant to return agency to your choosing. A man who believes his picture is a person will blame that person when the picture fades. A man who knows pictures fade will either let the person step forward or step out himself. He becomes capable of gentleness because he is not trapped by his own fresco. He can say no without hatred and yes without fog, because he stopped treating his representation as revelation. The remedy is discipline of attention. See what is in front of you, not what your loneliness paints. Keep company with reality long enough and desire becomes less hypnotic and more honest. The will loses its best accomplice, your imagination on autopilot. Schopenhauer famously described life as a pendulum between pain and boredom. Nowhere is this rhythm more brutal than in erotic pursuit. Before the union, pain reigns. Longing, uncertainty, jealousy. The gnawing sense that significance is at stake. The will calls this agony noble and sweet because it moves you to act. You call it romance. He calls it hunger dramatized. Once possession occurs, the pendulum swings towards satiety. The will, satisfied for a moment, reduces the tension. The very intensity that justified your sacrifices thins. Boredom creeps in, not because she is worthless, but because the will has already fed. This is why postcoital melancholy has haunted literature. The mind, which amplified meaning to rationalize pursuit, now struggles to maintain the mythology without the body's urgent chorus. You blame her for changing when often the representation changed inside you. The species extracted its due. The balance sheet is indifferent to your poetry. Schopenhauer does not gloat. He offers pity that is not indulgence. He invites you to recognize how reliably the depression follows the achievement. The function of that recognition is preventative. If you are honest about the pendulum, you will be slow to mortgage what cannot be repaid by the glow. A decade of work, a name you are building, friendships that keep you sane, oaths that make you solid. Lust asks for these down payments casually and never refunds. Men lose their mornings to the hunt and then their afternoons to the aftermath. The alternative is not abstinence as contempt. It is economy. You accept the swing and build structures that keep your center from traveling its full arc. You do not promise eternity under a surge you know will cool. You do not rearrange your life to secure access that will be less thrilling once secured. You do not read boredom as proof you chose wrong and lunge for a new surge. You read it as physics and return to the tasks that make boredom harmless. Craft that deepens, exercise that bites, study that outlasts moods, friendships that do not bill you for quiet. This is Schopenhauer's adult mercy. Recognize the pendulum so you are not its rag. If the bond survives the swing, respect has entered the room. If it dies, accept the autopsy without self-hatred. You were animated by a force older than your name. Now honor your name by resuming the work that makes you more than an errand boy for the will. Schopenhauer's pessimism is practical accounting. Lust does not only cost the moment, it mortgages the future. To pay the will's invoice, you quietly trade away the conditions that would have made you formidable. You skip the solitude where ideas are born, the discipline where strength is built, the labor where credibility accrues. You convert savings into spectacle and time into pursuit. The tragedy is not that desire costs. The tragedy is that men pay in non-refundable currency. Consider how quickly you change jurisdictions when access is on the line. You speak sentences that invert your own order. You agree to schedules that assassinate your mornings. You say yes to terms that will later breed contempt, then call the resentment complex instead of naming the simple betrayal. You sold the backbone that made you attractive in the first place. The will does not mind. It has its prize. The bill arrives when your partner senses the slack and, disappointed, presses for more performance to keep the high alive. Now both are enslaved, the giver by fear of loss, the receiver by fear of boredom. Schopenhauer's counsel is to erect tariffs against your own weakness. You do not enter contracts that subordinate your highest work to anyone's momentary heat, including your own. You choose rhythms that keep you human regardless of who is in your bed. Sleep that makes you honest, practice that keeps you sharp, silence that returns you to scale. When lust demands exceptions, you deny them as you would deny a spoiled inner child. Not because you are cold, but because you are guarding your future from your present. This strikes sentimental ears as cruel. It is kinder than the alternative. The alternative is to degrade into a shape you cannot respect, then punish the woman for recognizing the decline. A man who keeps his terms clear can offer heat without apology, because he never made access the price of himself. He remains expensive in the only way that matters, not easy to move from his post. A further economy emerges: selection. When your terms remain intact, some women will look elsewhere for someone easier to steer. Bless their exit. Others will draw closer because the same boundary that frustrated their momentary will protects their long-term love. You did not win by strategy. You returned incentives to truth. The will still knock. It will find fewer doors unlocked by panic. That is the point. Schopenhauer is accused of recommending gloom. What he recommends is chastening, reducing the empire of the will so intellect and character can breathe. In practice, this looks like depriving lust of its favorite accelerants. You limit stimulus that floods imagination. You refuse rituals that train your body to expect reward without cost. You choose social and physical routines that keep your nervous system from living permanently in anticipation. None of this is prudishness. It is engineering. You cannot think clearly about a contract while an alarm is ringing. Chastening also means returning honor to tasks that were made unfashionable by the cult of urgency. Reading that stretches you, crafts that resist shortcuts, lifting that remains when moods leave, walks that reset perspective. These are not distractions from romance. They are the fence that keeps romance from devouring the farm. The man who keeps these undertakings is not less capable of love. He is more because the will cannot hijack him with the promise of meaning he already has underway. There is room here for real tenderness. In Schopenhauer's scheme, what has value is often what reduces suffering. A bond that reduces your agitation and does not rent your integrity is not enslavement. It is relief. You will identify it by the way your disciplines remain intact near her, the way your mornings still belong to you, the way your speech does not bend into plea. Compulsion grows quiet when it has nothing to leverage. Simpler words appear. You like her, you admire her, you choose her. Choice has a different flavor than hunger. Chastening is tested in absence. Can you endure the cold of not pursuing long enough for your judgment to return? Can you watch your appetite rise and fall without baptizing it as destiny? Can you bear solitude without rerouting it into screens and novelties that simulate conquest? The man who cannot do these will call himself passionate. He is simply untrained. Schopenhauer's path is narrow but not joyless. The joys it favors have aftertaste that is clean, work completed, body used, promises kept, quiet evenings not purchased by a week of lies. Lust can live here, but it does not rule. When it knocks, it meets a man, not a boy with a pen. Sometimes you open, sometimes you don't. Either way, you remain. What remains once the illusion is seen? For Schopenhauer, clear-sightedness does not forbid love, it relocates it. Affection becomes a practice after disillusion, not a trance before it. You approach a woman as a person who may be companion, not as a priestess who must absolve your hunger. You spot the will's script and decline the parts that turn both of you into actors. You move slowly, not as strategy, but as respect for pattern. You keep your life intact so that any union must fit reality rather than rewrite it. This clarity changes the heat, but does not extinguish it. The fire you bring to a covenant written in daylight is steadier than the blaze you brought to an altar built in fog. You can say no without threat, and yes without bargaining, because the terms do not shift with tides. You can hear tears without surrendering judgment, because tears are information, not commands. You can walk away clean when trails diverge, because you never promised to be owned by a momentary surge. Schopenhauer's bleak sentence about the human lot is that much of our suffering arises from chasing images the will projects. The cure he offers is humility before limits and preference for goods that last when the theatre closes. Health, competence, friendship, work that keeps its promise, a reputation that answers for you when you are not in the room. Love that survives in such a life is not illusion, it is earned calm. It may be less cinematic, but it is more durable. It does not collapse into contempt when the pendulum swings, because both of you planned for gravity. You will be accused of coldness by those who equate hypnosis with romance. Accept the charge. Warmth without worship is the mark of a grown man. The right woman will feel safer near it, not endangered. She will find that your steadiness frees her from having to conduct your weather. She will see a partner who can be moved but not manipulated, touched but not turned into an instrument. You made it to the end, which already marks a man tired of calling compulsion love. If this put a name to the pull that keeps rerouting your life and gave you a way to answer it, break the wall and write in the comments below the one sentence you will live this week that keeps your morning, your money, or your mouth from being rented by lust. Like this video and share this with a brother who keeps mistaking hunger for destiny, and subscribe if you want philosophy with a blade. Remember, Schopenhauer's demand is austere and freeing. See the ruse, spare yourself the grave costs, and let love survive as choice after the spell is broken.